Welcome to the Squad Games Podcast. Squad Games Podcast.
So I've been holding this in for quite a while. I'm ready to finally talk about it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Giacomo, I told you about how the Aegis of the Emperor was showing through me.
Mm-hmm.
And I called you screaming about me having the rage of a Space Marine. And, now I know what it feels like to be a Space Marine because of all the hate in my blood.
Yeah, you have truly lived it.
I have. Essentially, I'm going to talk about my laser, the big one, the second laser that I bought. My first laser burned down, and then did the GoFundMe with everyone to purchase the second one, which I am extremely grateful to everyone who donated or help support me in any other way, even if you couldn't donate, giving me words of support and all that kind of stuff. And so I went out, I bought the second laser, and within 3 weeks, that one also burned down. The salesman I called the first time, and he said that only happens once a year. So I felt comfortable to reinvest and buy the second one. I bought the second one a week before LVO started. The second one caught fire. I put it out real quick, but the damage was still too great for the machine to fully function. And since January 13th, I got back into contact with Full Spectrum Laser, and they said that their warranty doesn't cover fire, which is supremely good for them, considering this has been a major catastrophe for the past two ones. So the whole journey started with the very first laser I bought didn't work correctly, and it was under warranty. The laser would go in and out, and it would just stop. And took me 6 months for them to send me a new one because the other one just didn't function. So I had one for 7 months, and then it caught fire. And it caught fire. It was like 9 days, 10 days outside of warranty. Of course, it doesn't matter because fire is not covered by warranty. So then this one happened literally 3 weeks into use. And I was so utterly defeated and frustrated. And then we went through LVO, and I got through that, and it was a great event. Everything went well, but not all was right with me or my heart. Or with my business. And I had to shut down my business. A lot of people have had, I can't fulfill orders because none of my lasers work. As of Friday, I just got Glowforge finally, after 8 months, sent me their Glowforge. So I have one sitting behind me. Luckily, it's brand new. And I look forward to working through that. And I got a new job. I work as a backflow specialist. So some people don't know, I drove like 24 hours last week, the week before, getting certified, which is a very difficult test to pass, but I have to pay the bills one way or another if my business can't do it. And while I'm driving that long distance, I kept calling Full Spectrum Laser because it's been about 70 days since January 13th. And I've been working directly with the salesman who sold me it, and he gave me three options. The option number one was that they would send me the parts, or two, I give them $1,000. I take the machine back out. Giacomo, you remember putting that thing in?
I do. It was a pain in the ass.
Yeah, we had to cut down a wall to do it, and we put the wall back up. To do it, I would have to cut the wall back down again, put it into a trailer, drive it to Las Vegas. But here's the catch. Not only would I pay $1,000, but then they would fix it on their timeline. And they've had my other laser since December 20th. Or 22nd or something like that. And only like a week and a half ago, they finally got a quote back to me to fix that one. And their quote was $4,000 to fix it, or to buy another laser with a dent in it that came with a full warranty, but not fire warranty, for another $4,000. And I was unsatisfied with that. And so that was option number 2, was to spend $1,000, send it to them, have them fix it on their timeline, or 3, buy a completely different laser. The other laser to get fixed would be $4,000, or spend another $4,000 to get another laser. Again, that just might burn up, right?
Christ.
So essentially, my frustration started stemming because I was emailing them, the salesman specifically, and calling him, and he refused to answer the phone. So I started calling the office. They refused to answer the phone. And, for the past 2 weeks, I've been very diligent about my calling, let's just say. Between 2 and 4 times a day, I call. They don't answer. Their tech line doesn't answer. The phone line doesn't answer. The accounting services don't answer. So I stopped paying my bill, and I told them that I would no longer pay my bill until I talk to somebody, because I need to get this resolved. I would like the parts. That's the option I went with. I have a lot of smart people out here that said they would help me. But they've been ghosting me. So one day, which was Thursday of last week, I called the guy a couple times, and he answered. No, he didn't answer. He ended up calling me. And I was like, "Oh, hello?" He said, "Hello." And then I said, "Hello" again. And he said, "Oh," and then hung up the phone.
Rip.
The rage that went through my body, and it was utterly catastrophic. I ended up having to leave work because of how irate I got. I've been dealing with this emotional process for so long that I just couldn't process that fact. And then I called him back 5 times. I texted him, and I told him that I was going to speak publicly about my ordeals with full spectrum laser. And he specifically told me, here, I'll pull up the text. Why not? It was very frustrating time, to say the least. I told him that I would stop all payments, and I was going to talk about it publicly. I was going to make reviews about it on our YouTube channel, which is hopefully about to pop off, which we'll also talk about. But he said that I could go through support from now on. He's going to step away from this. It's not a warranty claim, and that anyone that knows anything about lasers would know that that this is a problem, and that he was just trying to help me because I was in a bad situation, but it's not working out. That I could open up a ticket through customer support and let them know everything that I need to, and it'll be handled through emails between me and support. And then he said, now, as far as talking crap about us on our podcast, it won't help you in this situation, and not paying for the laser only affects you. And I never responded. I emailed support. I called support. I have emailed the company. I have left other emails. And there's absolutely no word back. I am completely outraged that this salesman never started a support ticket. The fact that he's going to make me start over with this entire everything. And I am at a loss of what to do. An absolute loss. And I have a platform, so I'm going to talk about it, right? Glowforge went, above and beyond to get me a new laser. They upgraded me because they apologized quite profusely about how long certain things took. So they upgraded me to the model above, and but it did take a while. This company has, unless if I'm paying them money for a machine that doesn't work, I don't know what to do. I don't know any lawyers outside of workman comp lawyers. I don't know anything else, and this is probably the calmest I've ever spoken about it. Giacomo will tell you. I was absolutely in a rage. It's hard to make me angry. It's really hard. I've dealt with a lot of things.
Even Anthony
can't
face.
do it. It's true. It's extremely difficult. This has been really trying on my patience. I don't know what to do. So I'm going to ask the community if anyone knows things or lawyers, or if any of you guys have any ideas. If you guys, I don't know. It's frustrating to say the least. I never suggest going through full spectrum laser, obviously. But I guess we'll move on to bigger and better things to talk about. Today, we have Chris Bakke. We're going to be talking about the data slate from the 27th, because that did drop. We're going to give our reactions about some of the rules that have been announced, and we're going to give a little bit of our what we think is going to be dominant, at least in the near future, for this new data slate. Because that'll probably be 3 to 4 months worth of stuff. But we also, before we get to that, I got news from Games Workshop about something. And there's a gold rush coming to California. There is a golden ticket gold rush. If anyone's familiar with the gold rush, everyone from all over the United States flocked to California to mine gold. Well, that gold is here again. It's been found. And in fact, we're giving it away. We're giving away a golden ticket at the All Valley Team Tournament this year.
What's up?
So it's going to be exciting. It's going to be big. And we are extremely excited to host bigger and hopefully more people at the world's best team tournament. I'm not going to say best tournament because that would be egotistical, but teams tournament, I might be able to quote that one for Kill Team at least. Quite exciting to say the least.
That sounds awesome. I mean, I'm gonna be there, so I'm gonna shill it and say it's gonna be awesome.
Well, the one from last year was better than the year before it, and so I am already eagerly awaiting for this one to be the cherry on top and go 3 for 3.
So this year's All Valley, we are going to be holding it at a Residency Inn here in Santa Clarita. So we're going to have room bookings. They said they're going to provide lunch and coffee. We'll have to work out the details on that. We'll have to see. But that Saturday night, because it's a 2-day event, three rounds and 3 rounds. That Saturday night, we will hold a squad games get together at a local brewery called Dakotah. So people can go with teammates, go with rival teammates, get to know the Kill Team community better. We want this event to feel different than any event you've ever been to. We want it to feel like a family. We want it to be filled with friends and everyone out there, having a great time. So, if Games Workshop ever grants us a second one, the second one will go to Best Sportsman. So we are eagerly awaiting AVTT this year, which will be held on September 21st and 22nd here in California. So if you guys are interested in coming to an amazing event with a golden ticket, it's rock solid.
Come down, bring your friends. Find free blades if you don't have friends. Then you can make friends.
Now, before we dive in, we're gonna divvy off one more time. Giacomo, how's the editing for Hobby Highlander coming?
It's a lot of fun. I'm having a good time doing it. All the stuff has been graded and colored. Now all that's left is just getting the scenes in order. And that's it. Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah, I'm very excited for it. I'm very excited for everyone to watch it. It's going to come out pretty soon. We'll let everyone know when that happens. It'll drop. What else is there to say about it? I'm working on the theme music for it, deciding if I like the first one, which I didn't, so I threw it away and made a new one. I didn't like that one either, so I had to work on it again.
So there is something else exciting. We are tonight, after this podcast, me, Chris Bakke, and Kellen Foster are going to be recording our very first Kill Team Meta Watch here by Squad Games.
Meta Watch.
And we're going to be going over all the stats with pretty little graphics that I made. And took me all day. But pretty little graphics that I made. And we're going to give our opinions. And then we're going to find out what the stats actually say. So that's the coolest thing about this, is that the stats don't lie. And we're going to compare and contrast and see if Games Workshop passes or fails what they did. So with their buffs and nerfs, it's going to be pretty cool, pretty exciting. It'll be a longer form video. So if you want to listen to it, feel free to listen to it. We're on our journey to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So if you guys want to hear more Squad Games, head over to our YouTube channel, subscribe, and watch that video, as it should be also dropped and released on Tuesday. We had me and Kellen recorded it on Friday night, and I didn't record any of my audio. So
Rough.
we got to do it again with better graphics, because last time it was just a Google spreadsheet. So it's a win-win no matter what for all of us.
Improving every step of the way.
Absolutely. So Chris, are you excited about the new data slate?
I am. I'm unbelievably excited. I think the meta has been blown wide open, and I look forward to being able to play some fun games until everyone starts playing Pathfinders again.
It's only a matter of time.
Yes, it
Only a matter of time, especially if Beta Decima becomes a thing, because, I mean, man, we can just dive right in. All the beginning of the Balanced Dataslate is aimed at Beta Decima.
BD.
Does it fix Beta Decima, Chris?
I mean, my not so hot take is it definitely doesn't. I love that jump tests are out of the game. I think that was just a cancer on Kill Team 21's game design. The whole rolling to see if you can move somewhere is a relic of, like, Big 40K or Kill Team 18. Glad to see it out of the game. Will not be missed. Will not pour one out for the jump tests.
I think it was.
Sorry, Sheldon. I know you love them. Now, when we talk about Killzone Beta Decima specifically, some of the fundamental issues regarding, teams that have fly, teams that have climbing ropes, teams with just a lot of mobility or forward deploys can simply do so much more than teams that don't. And I know that certain elements of the data slate did touch aspects of that, but there's still I think too many asymmetries for Beta Decima to make it a seriously competitive format.
I think that's fair. I also am not hot on the changes. So the changes are ultimately good, but here's the thing, everyone. Okay, here's the thing. I'm probably going to echo this in the YouTube video too, but restricted line of sight. The target operatives are not visible instead of obscured. Why are we playing with invisible walls? Like, just put the actual walls in.
No, it's just plastic they have to put in the box for you.
Yeah, I know. But here, we're playing on Into the Dark with Vantages now.
Well, I think there is
But
I think there is a notable distinction in that the restricted line of sight restriction removes visibility when you're doing line of sight checks, but other visibility checks are unchanged. So very unlike Into the Dark, Pathfinders, shout out to Pathfinders, can go ahead and just marker light you across the board, because marker light isn't a shoot action, doesn't need line of sight, none of that business. So they can still just marker light happily away. It doesn't matter if they're marker lighting over the ocean, doesn't matter if doesn't matter
Didn't even realize
anything
that.
else. Yeah, it's very unfortunate. Now, it's extra unfortunate if you understand that the marker light, is a target designator, and one of the things that really messes those bad boys up in real life is things like smoke or things like a roiling ocean spitting up clouds of gas. So ironically, that thing that should really ruin marker lights just makes them stronger, apparently. So again, love me some Pathfinders. Can't wait.
And then also we have the fact that they still get to forward deploy their drone.
Of course, the drone cannot be stopped.
Which is different from, because they specifically call out tactical ploys here for beta decima. So that just affects commandos and higher tech circle and probably Wormblade, I'm assuming. I don't know if it's strategic or tactical.
Yeah, I think the Wormblade one is hiding. I think also applies here. But yeah, notably the recon drone not being a tactical ploy means that it also forward deploys on ITD. So yeah, again, Pathfinders.
And the best thing about it, about this whole data slate, is that Games Workshop did not change climbing ropes. So we still have an innate problem with climbing ropes that Games Workshop just wants to sweep under the rug. Well, let me tell you what, everyone. I was the TO of LVO, if people are new listening to this, which is the largest kill team tournament planet Earth, Terra, has ever seen. And one of the most annoying questions that I got before the event, because I didn't realize this was a problem, was about climbing ropes and how people can become Spider-Man and Batman. And guess what? As raw, it works raw. Like Pathfinders could take climbing ropes, Monka, start climbing from over 7 inches away or 6 inches away, Monka up to the top when they're nowhere near it, get to the top, marker light, or just shoot you because they're dirty little blue dudes. And it's climbing ropes as raw is a big issue, and Games Workshop, as a TO, I have to, did they think it would cause too many innate problems inside the game for them to change it, which is probably the case, or did they just ignore it hoping that it would go away? And as a TO, I'm like, I don't deserve to have the right to influence the game, right? Like that's my philosophy. Whatever goes is goes. So I FAQ'd LVO. I was like, hey, with climbing ropes, don't Spider-Man, don't be a dick. Just like that, right? Like, but like, I don't know if I can continue to say that at future events because we've had a data slate and we've had an FAQ, and it was not, I know Games Workshop through the powers of the warp. I know Games Workshop knew about this rule. I specifically made sure that they knew about this and that it needed to be addressed, and it was not addressed. So in my mind, does that just mean that it's as intended? It's very frustrating, to say the least. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I think TOs are a little bit of a bind on this one. One of the fundamental problems with this is I'm in the camp where I'm pretty happy to go with rules as intended when I think there's a really clear rules as intended. I think the problem that we hit as TOs is it's really unclear where the line is. Clearly, climbing ropes are designed to give you some level of advantages over regular climbing and to some degree loosen some of those restrictions. But that threshold of how loose the restrictions are, exactly where that point is starts calling into question, how many of these tricks you can pull off and how absurdly cheeky you can get with it. So yeah, I think it's just in a crappy situation, and just try to play teams that don't have climbing ropes for now. I don't know. Yeah,
it's good stuff. I think that's one of my drawbacks from this FAQ and Balance Dataslate is that climbing ropes were not touched. So it's one of the things that I think needed to be touched, and it just didn't. May I also propose a rules change as we're on the first page of the Balance Dataslate that I would like to see, and I think would fix all of Kill Team. In fact, all the problems that we will bring up in this pod, I think, can be fixed with one easy rule.
What is it? Getting one less Pathfinder?
Actually, it's two easy rules. That would be the third. So first, I would really like to nerf loot, and I would like to nerf capture. And I'll tell you how both and why. When we look at stats in the YouTube video, there's like very clear favorites for teams who do really well on loot and teams who really do well on capture. And then there's everyone else. Okay. And then there's commandos who don't care and do good on everything. So we have like Wormblade, Veteran Guard, and teams that have GA2 who can steal 2 loots every turn, right? Every player turn. And I think that in order to fix loot, we need to limit that you're only allowed to do the loot mission action once per player turn. This would nerf Vetguard. This would nerf all the teams with GA2. This would be a really good change to the game, but only if this other thing is taken into effect. And I'd like to get both of your guys' criticisms or feedback about it. Capture would also have to be changed under this because there are certain teams that have an 80 to 90% win rate when they're not playing against each other or mirror match on these specific ones. That would be Gellerpox, Colts, and Felgor. They absolutely dominate capture. I'm sure anyone who's gone to a tournament or played at your local store, you've played Into the Dark and you have to play Colts and you're like, and it's capture. And you're like, well, why the fuck am I playing this game? Or you play Gellerpox on open, on capture, and you're like, why am I playing this game? This is not fun. I can't do anything, right? And that's just the nature of the teams. How hard the models are to remove from the kill zone compared to other teams is just innately a problem. But there's an easy fix. They already fixed this for loot. They fixed this for secure. But why isn't it fixed for capture? So if we balance the crit ops rules set, it would make the game a much better. And this is how we would fix capture. Teams that have to have a model that takes 2 APL in order to do a mission action would count as 1 APL for the rule for capture. Models that cannot do mission actions count as 0 APL for capture. So that would affect things like torments. Torments can no longer capture points because they're just rampaging monsters, right? You have Gellerpox. The Hulks would only count as 1. So now there's an actual chance that you can take something back, right? Mm-hmm. And it would change it from a 90 to 80% win rate for those teams to something at least more balancing. And unfortunately, when you're just hitting the teams over and over and over and ignoring the core problem of Kill Team, of the game itself, it's impossible to change a team in order to make them more balanced on 1/3 of the missions. When a Colts player goes into the tournament, they know they're going to win 1/3 of the games. They also know that they're going to have a really high likelihood to win games on loot because they have fucking a fuck ton of operatives, right? Right. So there's an innate problem with crit ops and how we play the game competitively that I think needs to be addressed. What do you guys think?
I actually think those are some pretty neat recommendations. Definitely the throttling 1 loot per GA2 sequence. I think that totally makes sense. And I also like some of those control changes that you talked about with models that can't do mission actions. Obviously there's a huge asymmetry that starts being created where certain models and certain teams really are throttled on mission action count, and it doesn't matter at all for capture,
including Space Marines.
Yeah,
true. No, I think those are pretty good changes. Now, will they implement them is the different story.
I don't think so. I think that we're too late in the edition for them to make any kind of radicalized changes.
They've already printed the cards,
Yeah, and they also misprinted loot on the most recent.
Did they? On
they did.
Whatever it's called now, the one with Into the Dark stuff?
They didn't change it to 16 victory points.
Yeah, but they would have had to. That would have been a whole thing.
Yeah, so that would be Dakotah's fix for Kill Team currently. And it touches all the teams that need to be touched, So, I don't know.
Yeah, I really like that. Definitely like the experience that you'll have as a cult player on Capture and ITD is very different than on Outside on Secure. So, yeah.
The GA2 thing is nice because when you have like you mentioned with Vet Guard teams that can just be explosive and really take your opponent's stuff before they get a chance at all. Like, what do you even do? You just lose that game.
I may or may not have done that before. And yeah, it's very strong.
So moving on to Commandos, that's next up. We don't see anything from Compendium. Commandos.
Yeah, so
they got nerfed. They got a bunch of FAQ nerfs, and they got nerfs in the data slate.
Yeah, so hot take from me here. Evidently, I guess I think that just a scratch nerf is massive. I think it seriously changes a ton of matchups involving commandos, and all of a sudden teams that did not have a reliable way of getting a boy suddenly do. So there's like a ton of ramifications around this change. I think this change alone definitely brings commandos into a range where they don't inherently have the upper hand against a lot of teams anymore. And the choppa and bomb squig stuff is icing on the cake.
Agreed.
I would agree with you. I think that these changes definitely put commandos in a better spot. Are they out of S tier?
I am not sure.
See, in my opinion, I think they are. I think there's one criticism I have about the commandos change.
What is it?
The bomb squig. So we'll go through each one so people don't have to pull up the data slate in case you haven't read it.
While they're driving.
Yeah. So bomb squig operative. This operative's APL characteristic cannot be positively modified for the bomb squig special rule. And it had make a shooting attack against each operative with an engagement range instead of visible 2 and within 1 or of 2. So essentially you can blow up within 1 and not 2 anymore, which means you pretty much have to be in close combat with somebody. I think this is a good change. You can't modify its APL anymore. But why nerf the bomb squig into the fucking ground when you could have just removed the bomb squig clause from their buff? Because currently on the data slate, they still have a buff on the data slate from their initial team. Why not just remove the buff? And that also
if I may take a slightly contrarian position, I suppose, if you have the perspective that you want to balance the decision between taking bomb squig plus grot versus a regular boy, it might make sense to sort of like tone down the bomb squig a little bit so that like you understand that it and the grot are a pair, and that's the trade-off you're making, right? So instead of just taking away the 11 operatives, instead try to make the commando grot bomb squig combo a little weaker, which is what the recent changes have been doing. You know, they changed the commando grot grapple. These changes. So, you know, I get it. And I love when players need to make choices. And, you know, if this will help make boy somewhat of a viable choice, I'm all about it, especially because of the choppa change as well.
Yeah, see, I also have a disagreement with your take, Mr. Chris. It's interesting. I think that having 11 operatives for the commando team is the problem. And them just trying to say like, hey, we still get 11 activations. We can still out activate almost every team in the game. We can do this. Hey, we can still do that. Is the innate problem. Sure. The Justice Scratch is big for math. Emmanuel is telling me that he finds himself charging into combat more often rather than taking the safe shooting stance. It seems like they also listen to the LVO podcast with Adrian, and this just seems like a straight nerf to Adrian himself because he was like, I just take choppas and put it on everyone. In my opinion, this is one way to play the game, and they didn't nerf any of the other ways. So people will still find the cheese in commandos because the commandos are still...
Commandos absolutely still have a ton of muscle. I'm not going to disagree with that for 1 minute. Absolutely. But I really want to just emphasize how many things in the game, you know, for example, one team that really didn't like fighting against commandos before were Void Dancers, because one big problem they would have was that they were, you know, at the start of a turning point, they were never in a situation where they could charge a full health boy or even a boy at, you know, 6 or 7 wounds left. And expect to even get the kill at all, right? It was like not super unlikely that they would outright lose the fight. So you know that could be a pretty serious problem, because Justice Scratch doesn't work on crits anymore. Now all of a sudden, you know, if a Void Dancer comes in and they have Murderous Entrance up, they can potentially one-shot the boy and get away before anything else happens, turning something where you couldn't have charged before into a situation where you virtually guarantee victory. You know, turning little situations like that on its head is really, really huge. And, you know, that's my stance on it.
I think that's fair enough.
Yeah, I'm on Chris's side. Every time that anyone's ever used Justice Scratch has always been on critical damage. just like the little amount I needed to kill somebody, and they go, "No, I'm going to stop that." So this is big, in my opinion.
I think that people are going to use this much more willy-nilly instead of just waiting for that big crit. I still think that, I mean, ultimately it's just one damage, right? Like, yes, there will be times where you get the kill when you typically wouldn't have, which is pretty big, which is the most feels bad that you typically find when you're fighting the Commandos players. Is you're like, oh, I got the crit. Oh, I'm going to block that one. Well, shit.
It makes your lethal weapons nicer, like anything with lethal 5+ or something. Which is always nice.
I think it definitely makes
again, it's not just one damage. It's the fact that the damage can go through it all. You know, it's a very similar thing to. Do you guys remember how obnoxious it was to fight against Chegrak's Jest? And then all of a sudden, it didn't work on crits anymore. And then it was a little bit more of an afterthought, right? It's like, yeah, it's there, but it's not a big deal. But do you remember how oppressive it was when it worked on crits?
Yes.
Very similar here. I guarantee you it's way more than just changing one damage. This changes a ton of fights.
Correct. Especially in melee combat where they could, like you mentioned earlier, you would usually survive.
Yeah, the change is mostly for melee. For range, this was, in my mind, this was mostly a melee ploy anyway. You would really get the huge swings in melee. It's interesting at range, but
a good Commandos player should never get shot.
Well,
or minimize shots. Make trades.
Yeah, they should definitely minimize shots. I think it's hard for them to ignore it outright, but definitely, Commandos is a great combined arms team. I think this is definitely going to emphasize for Commandos players. If you compare different Commando player play styles, maybe play it a little more like someone like Emmanuel's known to play them rather than some other players.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I still think they're S tier, but
I think they're an A. I think Choppa and Justice Scratch getting moved the way they did is just enough to bring them down to not be super dominant. They're still going to be they're still hard to play against. Yeah.
And, I've heard whispers of people talking about taking sledgehammers, get that 4/4 stun.
Ooh, there you go.
But again, now you're spending 3 equipment points on that bad boy. That's expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Adrian never took the dynamite either, and he won LVO, right? So
that he did.
Interesting. Another interesting change that we have is to the veteran guardsmen. I know that Chris and I definitely have different thoughts upon this. We both play Vet Guard.
I want to hear this.
So it should be a fun, entertaining thing. But let's go through it, and then I'll talk about. It's going to tie back into Choppas. So, firstly, we have. I guess we didn't read Choppas. Choppas subtract 1 from attack characteristics, except for Commandos boys. So they, instead of going 4 attacks, 4/5 damage, heaven fucking bid, to 3 attacks, hitting on 3s, 4/5 damage. Still insane for 2 EP. So moving on to Vet Guard, we have the Spotter. And then Chris, let's have you read out Demolition after. Spotters, operatives, the Spotter action, it treats that enemy operative as if it has the engage order, unless if that enemy operative is in cover provided by heavy terrain. So no longer can the Spotter change your activation token to engaged if you're hiding behind something heavy.
Yep, and then we have the Demolition Veteran. Demolition Veteran operatives detonate special rule. Change the distance requirement to white instead of blue. An operative cannot be a valid target if heavy terrain is wholly intervening, and you must be able to draw a cover line from the center of the mine token to any part of the intended target space without crossing heavy terrain. And then the Demolition Veteran operative's plant mine action can only perform this action once. So really massive changes to the 2 workhorses of Veteran Guardsmen. If you've had the misfortune of playing against Vet Guard, you know that these 2 operatives are an omnipresent threat. The Demolition Veterans plant mine only once per game totally makes sense to me. That brings it in line with all sorts of the mine layers that are in the game post Vet Guard. Those things are pretty big. It takes time to dig. I get it. Makes sense. The detonation rule range requirement going down from 2 inches to 3 inches, again, makes sense. It used to deny a 6-inch diameter area. That's huge. And then it doesn't blow up through walls anymore. Again, I think these are all reasonable changes. I don't really mind the changes to the demo bet.
Yeah, the spotter, I also don't mind. He has now been brought in line with everything else, but there's a couple major problems with this particular changes combined. Now I will disagree with Chris. I think that the demo mine should have been a 3-inch blast still. I think that now with a 2-inch blast, I'm probably only going to take it against Space Marines, kill one guy with it, and then let the demo man die from there because he doesn't matter anymore. But what do you think about the spotter changes, Chris?
I think I'm the only one in the world who doesn't like the spotter change. Different teams bring different tools to the party. And I know Vetguard definitely have a pretty big reputation. I've fought against Vetguard a fair number of times, including against a fair number of very talented players. And with these changes in effect, I feel like they almost would have been hopeless sometimes against the other tools that the team that I was running were.
Completely agree.
It was already a pretty reasonable thing to do to hug heavy terrain. And with this change now in place, you have both obscuring and heavy terrain to rely on. Vetguard has no anti-obscuring tech, unlike other shooting teams. I think this definitely knocks Vetguard, depending on what your perspective of it was before, it definitely knocks Vetguard out of S tier.
Yeah.
And I would wager it probably takes them out of A tier. I know that's a very controversial statement.
I agree.
From some people. I think this, and I think it's the spotter veteran change that did it. I think the demo veteran is unfortunate, but it makes sense, and that he can still do his job. I think the spotter veteran really struggles to do a meaningful job now. Except notable exception on ITD, still really good on ITD.
You think the spotter's good on ITD?
Yeah, I still think the spotter's really good on ITD. Definitely, because so much of the critical cover that shows up in ITD is on a point. People put barricades on points. So definitely spotter still super useful in that scenario.
Fair enough. For me, I think that I'm going to probably be leaving the demo and the spotter at home unless it's very specific matchups, because when you have a model up on a vantage, you already flip a model to engage. So behind light cover. So essentially the only thing the spotter does now is you don't have to be on a vantage and you can flip somebody to from light to heavy. Now, obviously, I think that's going to change from map to map. So obviously some tournaments might have more light terrain or light terrain on specific things, like we're seeing coming out of Spain and coming out of Australia. I think that he's still good there, but places like the UK and US, I don't see the spotter being super useful. The demo man definitely needed a lot of nerfs. I think that he probably got a little over nerfed to the fact that I'm only going to take him into Space Marines, and unfortunately, I'm going to continue to play the team because I'm a madman, but I think they still have play in other ways. And I think that what GW did here was they removed all the cheese. The problem with the team is, in my opinion, Chris, Giacomo, I'd like to know your opinions after. With Vetguard, I feel like they depended heavily on cheese to win any games. And because ultimately the team isn't that great unless if you have the cheese. So now we don't have the cheese for Vetguard. So what are they going to do? And in my opinion, I think they 100% lose every single game to Gellerpox. I think they 100% lose every single game to Felgor and to Colts. The demo man was a real big threat in those because all the melee operatives would set up behind a wall and then you'd be able to blow them up. So they couldn't do that. Right. And especially in high level play. So with that happening, Vetguard posed no threat in close combat unless you're taking hand axes, and even hand axes are not good. I think what I would have liked to see this, because there's something very, very heavy behind my words. They should have given this team some sort of sideways buff, because this team to me is verging on C tier of how good they are. I think they're definitely probably B or B minus. And when I look at the stats, this team had a 47% win rate last data slate. After LVO, they had a 54% win rate because there's a bunch of good players playing them at LVO, but they tanked the rest since January. And they have a 47% win rate. They have a decent primary points that they score every game on average, but they have the third worst. They are ranked 26th in secondaries. So Games Workshop saw Vetguard get second at LVO, and they took the nails to their hands. You will never win another tournament.
I definitely can't disagree too much with that assessment, and I think Vetguard can definitely win small locals just fine. I don't think Vetguard is capable of winning a major anymore. They exactly right that on open teams like Gellerpox, Colts, and Velgor is now an auto lose.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Yeah,
and those teams didn't even get touched. The craziest thing to me, I feel like Vetguard got hit harder than Commandos. And Vetguard had a 47% win rate and Commandos had a 52%. Talk about some plot armor, Games Workshop. You guys are really like orcs.
Well, I mean, the running joke was Vetguard had plot armor up until this point, so it looks like their luck has finally run out.
It sure has.
Yep, their arc on the show is over. I mean, I feel like the spotter could have gotten a different buff. Could have still had the same thing where you can't flip them from engage, but instead they'd have a obscuring removing ability.
Yeah,
like
that would have made it fine because then, in my mind that would have been a fine sideways nerf because now it's in line with not only no other or most abilities can't work on heavy terrain, but now many shooting teams have anti-obscuring tools, and again, Vetguard notably don't. Things like smoke are just a hard counter to Vetguard, which is already was a challenge before. Spotter being able to ignore obscuring, I think, would have been great, and would have kept at least part of that relevant. But yeah, it's still a pretty major problem, and the team's now really going to struggle to stop a stack of Gellerpox Hulks from just showing up, walking forward on conceal, and nothing can stop them from charging forward and doing their thing.
Yeah, so I think a couple things that could have happened, some sideways things, would have been like maybe make the spotter mortar on one APL or change their hand axes to be more in line with the Choppa. So maybe hitting on 3s, 3-5.
What do they hit on now? On 4s?
4s, and they do 3-5 damage. Or change them to 4-5 damage and put them and hit on 4s.
4-5 damage is insane. They're not as strong as a Space Marine.
I 100% agree. The problem is that this team gets rolled in close combat, G. So like,
of course, they only got 7 wounds.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, yeah, and unfortunately, some of the tools that are supposed to help with melee don't really do their job. The Zealot, is marginal and super super clunky to use. The Bruiser just doesn't work, and the Hardened's a stud. I've nothing but good things to say about the Hardened.
Yeah, the Hardened's pretty dope.
But the cumulative, between the Bruiser and the Zealot basically just being non-functional. They don't really have tools to substitute in for those bad matchups. Definitely seeing buffs for those operatives would have been great.
Yeah, like one thing that I've toyed around with thought-wise is taking the Bruiser and giving him the Rosary. So you put him into like some kind of big threat, and then deflect 1 and then block 2. So you're only taking like 1 damage if they hit with all 4 dice. But if they hit with 5 dice, he's dead anyways. So yeah, there's some spice to the team still, but they're nowhere where they're going to be. They're probably sub 45% win rate next data slate, 100%.
Yeah. And again, they're still going to do fine in casual games, and strong players can still do well with them. But at the upper tiers of bigger tournaments, I don't see it.
Yeah, one of the things that we see when we look at a team is, I was talking to Jimmy Kelly about this. Like, why take a team that is so difficult to play, and so when you could just take a team like that's better? and has a much higher likelihood of getting placing highly, right? So
I mean, the only thing you really have with Veteran Guardsmen now is doing the double loot with GA2, and that's kind of it.
yeah, that's all we have now.
Like your
And
big moves.
I want it to be nerfed.
Yeah.
But if they would have fixed that originally, I think that Vetguard would be in a much better place. You know, I'm glad that Games Workshop heard my cries and nerfed the team though, because it did need a nerf. It 100% did.
Yeah,
They're toxic.
blowing up their walls was a little rough. I don't know if the spotter should have been a side grade kind of change to come in line with everything else.
I wish the spotter's mortar barrage had indirect. It continues to feel very strange to me that like he can't call down a mortar strike wherever he wants, and I like how the mortar's pretty weak, but it's really really weird. It effectively just acts like a gun.
Bro, if that thing had indirect, he would be auto take again, but for different reasons, right? Like you wouldn't use his spotter ability really ever. But I mean, it's bad now. You just jump onto a vantage and you do the same thing. So
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't
I see it as it would be roughly equivalent of the Firestorm spell for Warp Coven, right? Like very very similar.
absolutely. So let's see here. What other teams got the next buffs and nerfs?
Nothing from Chelnath and Nakmund and Morok.
Didn't need it.
And then
there are some teams that needed nerfs that didn't get any. But
yeah, the Kill Team Manual definitely had some interesting things going on though. 2 of the teams in there got changed. One of them meaningfully, one of them not really.
Agreed.
Yep.
So I guess we'll start with the Wormblade change, which basically just clarifies the way that the previous rule was supposed to work.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people played it this way already, so it's not a big deal. I think this one is.
I think TOs were like, if somebody tried to do it the other way, they're like,
nah,
don't be dumb.
Yeah.
Don't be dumb, please.
I think it's a good change. That's clarification's always appreciated.
Totally agree.
Then,
this one.
And then there's Void Dancers.
Can I say something before we get into it?
Sure.
Void Dancers, everyone was so upset when Domino Field was changed. And their win rate initially dropped. But I would say right before Adepticon, they were sitting at a 60% win rate. They dropped to 57 because they didn't perform well at the Adepticon weekend. But the team's win rate went back up. You know why? Because people had to learn how to play Kill Team and not just abuse a cheesy rule. I feel like we're going to see the exact same thing with this change. Feel free. That's my hot take. That's my hot take.
So this is where it turns into some of the peculiarities, I can't speak this evening, of the wording. So all's well and ends well until you read that final sentence here for the flip belts. So I'll just read the rule. So all operatives remove the fly keyword and they gain the following ability: flip belts. This operative has the fly keyword for the purpose of moving around, across, and over other operatives. However, each time this operative is climbing or dropping, treat the total vertical distance as white. So here's the problem with that statement. It's especially the latter statement of the vertical distance as white for dropping. Because one issue with that is that because of the way the rounding works, that means they're always going to pay 2 inches to drop, even in situations where dropping would have been free before. I think that's a big problem for them in some scenarios, and actually makes them a little less nimble than I think probably the intent of this rule was probably to be. So I read that as a little bit of an oversight, to be frank.
Well, just play Mandrakes if you want to jump across the board now.
We'll get there later.
I think it's great that flip belts are not the same as fly. I think that them moving over other operatives makes a lot of sense. The more I think about it, the more I just wish they just ignored traverse outright and then climbed and dropped normally and just leave it at that. Instead of this complicated only 2 inches to climb and 2 inches to drop stuff. Overall, I think, I'm glad Void Dancers have to play the same game that we do. I think that's a healthy change. I think that with this change, I think they need some tools back to help them. And then one of the big reasons why they can post that 60% win rate was because they're just super, super good at, people who are newer to the game. Whenever someone picks up Void Dancers, they've just got this amazing toolkit. They're APL 3, they're super fast, they're hard to shoot, they do crazy damage in melee, they're always throwing 5 dice, 3s to hit, just everything's reliable. And when players are doing that, it can really cushion the blow of making mistakes. Now that they need to move normally, that really throttles a lot of what they're able to do before. And I definitely think they could potentially do things like make the Sadath ability back to full power, so they get more command points when they get Sadath, and then certain things like the Domino ploy being more expensive aren't too big of a deal because they can get more command points like they used to. But I really like that they don't fly anymore.
See, for me, I think that their win rate's going to go up. Maybe not this data slate, maybe next one. But I think that once people figure it out, I think it's gonna go at least stay 55. I don't
know what there is to figure out. I mean, the flip belts are just objectively worse than fly. Before. There's not some other toolkit that they have. A lot of what made the team work was setting up these crazy asymmetrical charges. Another huge change is to the Death Jester, DJ Shuriken Cannon, because now he cannot pop tart like he used to.
It's true.
Nearly as effectively, and that's a problem for him.
Yeah. I will say that the reason why I think that is we've seen nerfs to Void Dancer's cheese before, and we've seen their win rate keep creeping up. Now, I think that their chances of winning a tournament or possibly placing is going to continue to drop because this is probably like a problem at like higher levels. But I think that unlike you, I think this is a really bad team to learn Kill Team on. Yeah. Specifically because you ignore so many rules of the game. You build
bad habits.
You 100% build bad habits. Space Marines are where you want to learn where the game is at, right?
Yeah, I agree. I've introduced a number of people into Kill Team, and a few of them have chosen Void Dancers because they're cool. Killer comes from outer space, right? Got it.
Hell yeah, I love that
but
movie.
It definitely, there's two things that Void Dancers players don't learn. One of them is just how movement works. They just take the measuring out, measures the crow flies, and call it a day. They don't know what traverse means sometimes. They don't really understand climbing at all. And the other thing that this team bypasses people learning is how vantage points work. And that's been a recurring problem I've had, where people don't start not understanding like what the point of a vantage point is, or how exactly you can shoot somebody in like cover, because of how Domino Field works. So you simply just turn it all off. You never even learned it. You just turn on Domino Field if you're worried about getting shot. You don't think about it more than that. I really don't think the team's good to learn Kill Team with.
Totally agree.
And I think that might just be an issue of the White Dwarf teams, where they always have some sort of weird thing when they were in designing. And well, here's where they are now, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that it's ultimately a good change. The Wormblade clarification was also very good. The Void Dancers, this whole data slate just seems like they've been nerfing the cheese. The only way that they would have nerfed more cheese is if the sneaky git was also on this data slate, but that was on the last one. So These Games Workshop's doing the Emperor's work here.
That they are.
Giacomo, do you want to take us through Warp Coven?
Whoa, so much stuff changed. All right, so the big one I really, really enjoy is the Exalted Astartes strategic play. So now Rubric Marines can shoot twice, but it costs an extra APL to make the second shot. If it's the gunner, which is nice. I mean, because I think you're going to take the gunner anyways. You're going to put up the what's the assault cannon called? I can't remember what the full name is.
Soul Reaper cannon.
Soul Reaper cannon. Yeah, you're still going to park the Soul Reaper cannon up there, but now it can shoot twice. Which is pretty rad.
So the big change here is that this is now free. So before, this was a super powerful ploy, and it's also expensive. And Warp Coven weren't a particularly CP hungry team, but every little bit helps. And so this makes a huge difference, because now they just leave this turned on the whole game. They effectively now have the same rule that Intercession has, where it's just basically is just baking it in the data sheet. Can't be denied from Inquisition because it's a free ploy. Awesome stuff. And it makes it a little more flexible as well in the double fighting and double shooting. But it's similar to how it was before, just free.
And Sorcerer's,
And then there's the stuff below. You want to read? You want to read the stuff below?
Yeah, Sorcerer's Command got extended with its range, which is good. Being closer wasn't always nice because if you decided to play more of an elite choice, well, I don't think you'd want to be everybody so close to the sorcerers.
Yeah, the change from 6 to 9 inches
6 to 9 is nice.
really really nice. Also, just kudos for having the number 9 showing up in the rules. Always like to see that.
Hey, there you go. Maybe that's why they did it.
Was I the only one who saw that and thought that?
No, I didn't even see that. Good job.
I also did not realize that. I was too angry at why don't they just say all rubrics get 3 APL?
Yeah,
as
because
long as
it's a
there's
devious
sorcerer alive.
scheme.
Zangor's got an extra wound, which
So what's the wound count of Zangors now?
9.
Holy shit!
Yeah, they're pretty strong, right? Like that's
9.
a big number.
Giacomo, 9.
Thank you, Dakotah.
But I was just excited that they got another wound. But okay,
We could have just let everyone in the podcast.
we need 9 more changes.
that.
And what is that? How many changes is that? 3 changes? They didn't have enough changes yet. Maybe this team is supposed to get a balanced data slate every time because they keep changing.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's 10 total changes, not 9, but it would have been really cool.
Psychic powers is cool. So now the power lasts until the activation of the start of the next activation of that sorcerer. So
yeah, I think the lingering spells change for Warp Coven is huge. So whenever people are thinking Warp Coven, you always think of ephemeral instability, right? Because that's the big thing. Combo wombo slows you down, all that good stuff. One of the reasons why you would only really see that ploy is because outside of the shooting, or not ploy, the spell, outside of the shooting spells, the other spells are really, really hard to use to get any benefit of. One of the spells makes it so that your opponent can't positively modify target operative's APL and can't do rerolls, something cool like that. But the problem is, by the time you've activated a few operatives, if you cast that spell on an enemy operative, there's only so many activations left in the turning point before the tournament's over and all your spells reset. So it's massive being able to do things like buff one of your Rubric Marines or buff of Zangor, and now that buff actually still be there so you can get initiative the next turn and use the piece you just buffed.
Absolutely.
Really, really important to effectively give Warp Coven all their spells that they have on those disciplines. They can actually use those spells much more effectively now. That's probably the thing I'm most excited about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that these changes, including, arcane robes, basically giving the sorcerers durable, is really, really big and really important for the team. But I do have I have privileged information from this past weekend on the brand new data slate. Can anyone guess what Warp Coven's current win rate is? Now it's just 1 week, so it's gonna change. But anyone have a guess?
Like change after the data slate or before the data slate?
This is as of the data slate being live.
90%.
No, I think at least a cool 43, 46, somewhere there.
So Giacomo, you still think they're bad, and then Chris is thinking they're god tier. Well, I will tell you, it's in between those two numbers at 75%.
Wow.
Currently, they have a 75% win rate because the team got buffed into the fucking stratosphere. This team is now good. Alexander Popov, we've had him on a couple times.
Friend of the pod. He
said to me that this is everything that he's ever wanted. There's a couple things that he would still change, but all in all, they fixed all the problems. None of us could figure out the right fix, but apparently Games Workshop did. He's very happy with the changes. And so is Jimmy Kelly and a few other Warp Coven players like my wife. Chris, do you think that they're good enough that you would take these to a golden ticket event? Do you think they're that good?
All I'm saying is I have also played Warp Coven since the data slate came out. So, yeah, I'm pretty hot on this team right now.
Damn.
I really, really like the lingering spells change.
Yes.
I think it's really, really healthy for the team. Ever since I saw Hyrotech get that treatment, I looked on with envy and wishing my spellcasting sorcery boys could do the same. So really, really happy with that. Zangor's getting 9 wounds is nice. They still look on with envy to Felgor. Yeah, I mean this team has some serious muscle to it. I was playing a fun game with a buddy of mine over the weekend, and he took Blades of Cain, and I made a pretty grievous misplay, and he got some pretty good rolls, and ended up having one of his Banshee Exarchs chewing through 2 Zangors and a Sorcerer at the end of turn 1, which was pretty rough for me. I was not happy. But by the power of Tzeentch magic, Warp Coven ended up not only recovering, but ending up running away with the game. So this team can really, really throw some meat down, and the Arcane Robes make a huge, huge difference. If you're careful with sorcerers and try to like limit how many fights you get in a turn and keep that heal going, you're just insanely durable.
Yeah.
Yeah, Warp Coven. Yeah.
All right. See, I was initially I was telling Dakotah, I thought a lot of people were going to be hot on them, play them, but not know how to play the team properly and kind of make the team lose, and like the percentages would be down because everyone's playing them. But then they'd spike once people figured it out, and it would start going higher.
I think what happened is there were a bunch of Warp Coven players who tried to figure out the team before and tried to make it work. And they got pretty far, and some of them could, win some games, but it wasn't enough. And they sort of threw their hands up, and they're like, not worth the effort. But now they're coming back to the team with all that experience they had before, and actually a really, really strong, toolkit to make it work.
That too. But I do expect some new fans to jump in and play them, which is good.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. I believe in magic.
Do you believe in the number 9?
I believe in magic. Na, 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 na. Sorry. Got a little excited there.
So
we're all excited of Warp Coven.
Warp Coven's cool.
Yep, they're going to be good. My wife is sure happy. If we weren't running BAO this year, speaking of which, BAO is coming up, and we are running it at Mad Alpaca Games. It's a Bay Area Open. Make sure that you get your tickets.
Championships?
Bay Area Championships now.
Now, where can they get those tickets?
On lustersworkshop.com.
Link in the description.
Also, in 2 weeks, we have the Pacific Skirmish Open. We would like to see more tickets sold to that. So if you guys want to go to it, please go on to lustersworkshop.com, buy some tickets. We're running it at Squad Marks in Orange County. It's going to be a great time. Now we have the Farstalker Kinban. And does anyone else think that this is the absolute wrong fucking take to buff the team? Because I have a...
So it feels like somebody at Games Workshop was just yelled at by a Kroot fan who was angry about the ploy to buff the number of attacks the team has not being good enough, and just threw up their hands and threw some bonus attacks out there. But they were salty about this interaction, so decided to nerf the Kroot Hound while they were at it.
you think it's a nerf, huh?
Oh yeah, definitely. I absolutely think that the Kroot Hound changes the nerf.
You don't think that the 12 12 activations is good?
I think Kroot do pretty well on Turning Point 1, given the amount of just conceal that they have and their mobility, getting to where they need to go and getting the kills that they need. And I don't think that extra activation makes a huge difference for them at that point. I think what they really do need is some punching power, some muscle, and one, not maybe the most clever move of all time, but certainly a straightforward one, would be to have 2 hounds both charge, first activation Turning Point 2, and try to kill either a single Space Marine or get a double kill on things that aren't Space Marines. That is not an option anymore, and I think that hurts Kroot. I actually think Kroot got nerfed overall in this data state because of that change.
Wow.
I don't think adding one of the attacks makes up for that difference.
And you don't think
at least it's
it's a shit change. It's a shit change.
Yeah, I think it's a nerf. I think that the tracker, comms buff and spotting ability that the tracker has, it's cool that it works within engagement range, but not 6. This operative tended to be really far away from opponents as is. I've had this come up maybe once. I played Kroot, maybe 24 games since they've been out. I don't get it. It just feels like, I don't understand.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, even Action Economy can't fix them.
I'll tell you why I think it's a buff.
Why?
So, I really value out activating my opponents, and I think that Kroot really struggle in the late game. And while killing a model is always good, I think that, getting away from just the kill mindset and just focusing on scoring primaries and not dying is the biggest problem that Groot have. They are not around long enough in the game. So to score primaries, they can't hold points. They're not durable enough. And ultimately just making them kill things better and then die is not the best mark or the best way to buff the team. They need some kind of durability. They need something else. There's a lot more in depth to my analysis through stats for the Kroot, which we'll go over more in the YouTube video. But that's the gist of it. So,
if only Kroot could, like, I don't know, do their signature move of eating something and then getting buffed from it. If only, right?
Yeah, honestly, I
that
thought
would
they
be
were going to
sick.
get that power, like, because that's their whole lore. So, like, okay,
Maybe whenever they kill something in close combat,
they get +1 to
And-
attack or
and
something
I
for
get
the rest
that
of
the
the game.
theme of the team, that's not the focus. I understand that.
Yeah, but
the
they
fact that they
fucking
can't
suck.
do it at all, come on,
They suck.
James. What are you doing, James?
James Workshop. Come on,
Yeah.
my guy. So, I mean, there's a few teams on here that when you're looking through the data slate, you're like, holy shit, this team is no longer the same one, right? You look at, Pathfinders,
Warp Coven.
their shit is dumb as fuck. I'm going to take away an operative. I'm going to give you back an operative.
And you take the recon drone, which you're probably going to do.
Then you have Warp Coven, which you're like, oh, wow, that's an entirely different team. Farstalker, that's another entirely different team, right? And then we move on to Higher Tech Circle, and holy shit, that team, I can barely fit it on one page. Scrolling here on 100% value. I mean, they've changed so drastically since their release. It is absolutely insanity, especially compared to their Imperial Navy Breachers counterparts, which is like 3 sentences. Hyrotech, they got a bunch of changes. They got 2 small FAQ nerfs. The Chronomancer got a nerf, but the Technomancer got a buff. The Psychomancer got a buff. And then we have the Apprentice who got a buff, which is really big.
Mm-hmm.
And then the biggest buff that they got was reanimation protocols, no longer being a 60% passing rate.
Yeah,
now it's
3 up.
now it's a
and
2
it's
plus.
2 up, yeah.
Yeah, which is huge. Fucking ginormous.
Yeah.
We saw both teams who didn't die, who would come back to life. The top 2 players at Adepticon. I wonder if we're seeing a shift in the meta. Are we going to see Felgor and Hyrotech be the reigning supreme because, they don't fucking die? I guess we're going to find out. The Chronomancer, a lot of people are down about, but again, Games Workshop's nerfing the cheese. So instead of having a 12-inch bubble of cancer, now you have a 6-inch bubble of
Yep,
cancer.
I'll take it.
Yeah. Less cancer is better.
Oh, and it doesn't work on dashes anymore either.
Which
so
is
correct.
It's considerably weak. It was pretty gnarly before. The Chronomancer's other spell to give you the 5-up feel no pain and the extra movement is still a god tier spell.
Yep.
I don't understand why like a time shifter spell just speeds you up and gives you feel no pain. It always felt a little awkward to me. I always thought it'd be really, really neat for that. Just instead, when you cast it, the next turn, like that operative activates first before anything.
Yo.
And so you actually get like an activation first out of it, like guaranteed activation.
That'd be cool.
I think that'd be super cool and actually mess with time a little bit, some timey-wimey shit. As is, Chronomancer I think is still really strong and sort of still the default pick. And I think you're still taking the same 2 spells you were before.
Well, it looks like they're saving the timey-wimey shit for the Brood Coven box. At least that's what they hinted to with their leader being able to, do something with initiative. So I guess we'll have to wait for a future timey-wimey bullshit. Chris, do you want to take us through Technomancer and Psychomancer?
Yeah, so Technomancer, very controversial set of changes because it's a little bit unclear where the Technomancer even sits now. So the rule says Technomancer's operatives' rights of reanimation action, delete the first paragraph. Second paragraph becomes an ability. In other words, it no longer requires the operative to perform an action, but subtract 1 from the Technomancer operative's APL if you use that ability. So this
Which what?
changed a lot from what it was originally was. So normally with high reticulars, you take a cryptek and you pick 2 cryptek spells, so cryptek actions. Of those, when you roster them and then you take them in the game, and that's the spells you run for the game. The Technomancer had 3 spells, and one of them was super reanimation, rites of reanimation, whatever you want to call it. With this change, it's a little bit unclear what exactly rites of reanimation is now, because it's not an action anymore, but the card has it printed in the cryptic actions section, but now it says it's an ability. So there's a few different ways you can interpret the way that this works, but the closest rules as written thing I can suss out here is that the Technomancer only has 2 different spells now, and Rites of Reanimation is no longer an optional spell. It's just baked into the Technomancer. You can always run it, but the Apprentech isn't able to use it. I would love for a clarification from GW on what exactly this is supposed to be, but in the interim, that appears to be my read.
I would agree.
You have to wait for the FAQ for them to do some clarification.
What, in 3 months?
Yep.
Get outta here.
Yep.
We have to figure it out by ourselves, okay? We're not allowed to wait for Games Workshop anymore. They take too long. What about the Psychomancer?
Yeah, the Psychomancer, Conjured Trauma got a little buffed. This was the weakest, I think, of the Psychomancer's spells. So really, really cool to see it being a little useful. One of the biggest problems with Conjured Trauma before is that when you have a spell that's going to force a specific enemy operative to be injured, that scales very poorly with teams that have more activations, right? So, making a single operative of a Vet Guard team injured out of 14 bodies means virtually nothing compared to making an Intercessor injured, which could be interesting, right? So what I really like about this change is that if you roll higher than your opponent's APL, in addition to what it already does, it also subtracts 1 from their APL. So that helps it scale pretty reliably to, on a 3-up, take an APL from an enemy, in addition to making them permanently injured. And the cool thing is that the way that the spell works, you're always going to get the benefit of this APL reduction, even if the Psychomancer activates again. So I think that's really, really nice. And then finally, the Apprentech gets to APL 3. I think this was a long time coming. Pyrotech has one of the lowest total APL stats in the game. So it's nice to see them get a little bit of help in that department.
Yeah, similar to Scouts. Scouts also have shit APL. And then we have the reanimation going up to 2+. I think this is relatively, while there are some sideways things, and then they got 2 FAQ nerfs, which are in Into the Dark, you can no longer, if you forward deploy, quote unquote, forward deploy, you get a free move action. Your death mark has to be on conceal if you choose to use it. And then there was one other one as well. But ultimately, I think that the team is still relatively buffed, especially because of the reanimation and the
That's
3
a big
APL.
one. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that the Chronomancer is still like a big feels bad for people who have used it before. But, sucks to suck.
Yep.
Everyone else is happy because just like the vet or demo mine, everyone else is happy.
My only remaining big gripe with this team is, if we're going to have living or reanimation work on a 2-up, it starts really begging the question of why we're rolling for it at all. And I sort of fundamentally am not a fan of rolling for something like that in the first place.
It may as well just
I would agree.
You may as well just get it,
There's another team who dominates the meta right now that doesn't have to roll. It's called Felgor. And maybe it's because they're the GOATs, the greatest of all time. But maybe it's also
we have to talk about the dwarves.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about them. But maybe I'm just saying that they don't have to roll to, come back to life.
No, they do not.
Yeah. So dwarves, you love the dwarves.
I do love the dwarves. I think they're pretty cool looking models. I still don't think they're like top tier, but I think there's a couple cool moves they can do.
Even after these buffs, you still think they suck?
No, I think they're like C and B. So you'll have fun playing them, but you won't be like.
Well, that's where we put them before, G.
Yeah, exactly. And they're not going to probably top 10% or top 3, whichever is better. There's still cool stuff like the dozers. Nux Smash is pretty awesome. So I was telling Dakotah, you could make like a 6-inch charge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you can do your Nux Smash, and then you could do another 3-inch charge. And obviously, one of the easier answers is move them off objectives, put them into the open. But another one is keep yourself safe. So you push them, and then you charge forward, but now you're still safe because you're stuck with that guy. You
Mhm.
know, and
You
that's
push
pretty
back
good.
onto objective and then get on it.
Yeah, that too. You can just be just enough out. That's a pretty nice ability. That's a cool one. Now the locator. This is actually a really, really good change, because I remember Dakotah and I were on a phone call once when I was taking a walk, and I was asking him, "Doesn't the locator stop like some of the like into the breach and sneaky git and stuff?" And
Pretty
he
sure
was-
it's locateer.
locator, locator. But I'm going to say locator because that's probably how you're supposed to pronounce it. Actually, I think that is right because dozer is pronounced that
I'm
way, and locator.
Pretty sure it's locator. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what language they
very-
based it
Don't
on.
look at me, man. I just work here.
Very creative.
I can't even look at you through the internet.
It's much like the Jaegers. I looked at them when I first saw them. I was like, wow, they just look like Hearthkin scouts.
with the little
And they're just Hearthkin scouts.
the robes. But no, like the locator is good because now it stops all movement until the firefight phase of the first turning point.
Mhm.
So that's actually very good. You're going to see them more often. And then the pan spectral scan. They have a removing obscuring ability. Like they did it. They're getting everyone to have one. Why can't Vetguard have one?
Because Vetguard are too good. For now.
Yeah,
They were too good.
So like I already expected to see the locator taken. Now I expect him to see taking that model more often.
Yeah.
Even than before. Now the dozer, I don't necessarily know if you're still gonna take the dozer. In high level play, there's probably a crazy move you could figure out. Like get him into position so you can use like your laser beam next turn and get like a huge shot with the plasma beam thing.
Yeah.
Maybe that's like a really cool move you could do. Yeah.
I'm pretty hot on these changes. I think that, the main reason why I like these changes is specifically because we got a little bit of rules about the locators, right? I am such a big, of the Jaegers. I am so happy that the Jaegers get to start outside of their zone or whatever, right? And then the other Hearthkin are just like, nah, fuck you, my guy. We're slow together.
Yeah, because
You can't leave.
I totally
We
believe
can't
that
leave.
the Jaegers are going to move 5 inches, the 4 plus the 1.
Probably.
Yeah, I don't think they're getting anything. If they become faster, I'd be like, damn. Way to kick the dwarves when they're down.
Yeah.
Because I think the team's always lacked speed, and that's really what kills the team.
I think the locator getting rid of obscuring now takes the game to having 10 teams that ignore obscuring. I think Games Workshop needs to realize that when you keep taking away obscuring from teams, it no longer makes it special.
I mean, if it's just on one guy, it's okay. Now if it was a whole team that takes away obscuring like Phobos can have, that's cool and all, but not all their specialists are, what are they called? Incursors. So you'd be taking a lot of warriors to do that.
Chris, what do you think about the dwarven change?
Yeah, I think for consistency, it's really nice. I think it totally makes sense to bring it, to in line with people's conception of it. I don't think these changes meaningfully move the needle for Hearthkin salvagers, not in a big degree. They're certainly really nice quality of life changes, and I wish the team had them on release.
And I wish the team best of luck at tournaments.
Yeah, I still don't think they have it.
I don't think so either. I mean, a good player can take them really well, though.
Oh, of course.
I mean, I
A
think
great player can do well with anything.
Exactly.
Except Crew.
I think that's. I mean, dude, I saw Orion take Kroot to Adepticon last year, and I was like, not
Why?
Adepticon, Nova, and I was like, these guys are painted like dope, and he was like, yeah, thanks, bro. And then I was like, these are what you're taking? He's like, yeah, and I was like, why? And he was like, because they're fun, and I was like, well, if anyone can do anything with them, Orion can. He didn't do great that tournament.
I was going to ask where he placed.
Not great.
We don't talk about that tournament.
Hey, the one that I went 4-0 day 1 and then lost every game day 2. Yeah, let's not talk about it.
Let's talk about goats instead.
Yeah, let's talk about the goats. I'll
Yeah.
take these fucking ding dongs. All right, so the Iron Horn, which is their leader, his call of the attack ability was changed. Now the operatives must be visible to and within 6 inches of this operative. Almost like it should have been like this on release. In fact, I don't understand why Games Workshop makes a bunch of abilities that just ignores visibility. Like their Toxhorn grenade, like why does that just get to be like, I'm just going to throw it over this bastion or over this orc castle and throw it within 6 inches. I don't know where the fuck it's going to land, but it lands perfectly where I want it to. Fucking
I mean, I can try to give you a semi-real answer to that.
Okay.
So the problem is that a lot of the way that the game determines, what things can see other what things can see other things are cover lines. And the problem with things like tokens is that they don't actually have cover lines because they don't have bases, right? It's a singular point in space. So I think GW's actually struggled to come up with the wording that would work to make tokens, be somewhere that's visible to the operative. And work the way that they want them to. And that's why things like, for example, the Dark Elder Torment grenade, it affects everything in range, and then it has a bonus against things that the throwing operative can see. So it depends on what the throwing operative could have seen at the time, which I think is their way of like splitting the difference. But I think the demo mine from Edgard is for a similar reason.
Yeah, see, there's this thing called ChatGPT. It's a language model, and it would help them with that. Sorry. That's my snark. And probably incorrect snark as well. So Gnarl Scar got changed as well with his uncompromising attack action.
Thank God.
You can only select auto pistol for this shooting attack. Giacomo, it's not as bad as you think. Firstly, you can give his the pelting firepower, and you can give the rending attack to his auto pistol. So if he charges in, he can now shoot 4 times and possibly get a crit and then turn another hit into another crit and still do a fuck ton of damage. It's ultimately, and then he could still have the grenade and then, possibly throw it afterwards.
Only if he can make a second attack, second shooting.
One of the straightforward ways to still use the Gnarl Scar is to just use the crack grenade before you
run
fighting. So, one of the Gnarl Scar's coolest abilities is being able to flip back to conceal after he does his business. Mm-hmm. So, in turning point 1, having a move dash up, throw the grenade, go back to conceal. It's a very straightforward move. I've had Velgor players do that to me a whole bunch. So it's really nice that this specific interaction is changed. But I think Gnarl Scar getting crack grenade is still going to be a very common choice. It's just this removes one of the avenues it could have been used on.
Just the cheese. It's mostly the cheese.
Yeah.
War Paint. This is their only real nerf, in my opinion. Well, I guess the death.
No, I would say the death knell is a big change.
I think everything other than the Gnarl Scar change were significant.
So the War Paint now changed to 2 EP, which is very good. It definitely provides teams that have a lot of stun or can take a lot of stun an avenue to possibly deal with Felgor a little bit better than other factions. So
yeah,
that's always good.
It's that, and one of the ways to help mitigate melee teams, especially tough melee teams, is that when they're injured, they slow down, and because operatives that are frenzied are injured, you couldn't actually slow them down by frenzying them. So this introduces a little bit of counterplay to slow down at least some of the goats when they're injured. Really, really supportive of this change.
Yep, good choice.
Yeah, I still don't think it's super impactful. We saw Jimmy Kelly not take War Paint very often at LVO whatsoever and still do really, really well with them. Of course, the Death Knell was still a thing back then, and he is no longer. The Death Knell, which is the guy with the shield or the gong, basically when he is frenzied, the gong no longer affects. So when he's frenzied, you can now kill him instead of having to kill him in close combat, which was a little cancerous. So that is a big change. I know that it would have affected me on some of my interactions when I fought Felgor. So this, I think, is a good change overall. Now the question is, do I think that these changes bump it out of S tier? I would say absolutely not. What do you guys think?
No, they still have some good operatives that can still dish out just as much damage.
I think this might be enough to take the team out of S tier. But if it does, they're still very high A tier. But I do think the cumulative set of changes here is pretty significant.
Now, here's the thing: if we take enough teams out of S tier, the teams we've already declared were S tier, what becomes S tier? Because aren't those teams still really good?
Well, that's actually like sort of a philosophical question in how you build a tier list, and I think we're at extreme risk of going on a diverting talking point here. So we'll save that for another time.
Exactly. Yeah, I think they're still good. I like where they go with the Death Knell's ability. Like once they're frenzied, they just lose their abilities. We were talking about that before. It would be cool to see that happen with all the Felgor. Like, so when they become frenzied, they just charge and fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could live with that.
I think that there's a couple other things that could be changed for the team, but I don't know if that's something that we can really fix ourselves. Or, I mean, we can all have thoughts about it, but
Right.
Yeah. I would like to see them all get -1 wound. See what that does to them.
They're not
or
Vangors.
-1 operative. Kill them.
I wouldn't hate the -1 wound.
Yeah, I mean, it puts them in line with Zangors. So, so we move on to the final team that got a change here in the data slate, which is also, to me, underwhelming. We have Colts. Colts got a change. They got a nerf. Their nerf was the Winged Cursed Gift. Delete the first bullet point, which was they no longer
suffer move penalties if they're injured or something, right?
Correct. Or they don't suffer move penalties whatsoever. That is now gone. They can still ignore traversable, which is objectively possibly one of the more probable worst things. Maybe they should just... I was a big fan of just deleting winged altogether. And then they also get -1 devotee, which is rather large, and I think a step in the general right direction.
Hooray.
-1 devotee ultimately loses them 1 activation because you now have 1 less devotee. You're going to mutate 1. So instead of having 1 devotee use the last activation on your turn, you no longer have that model. So they go from, I think, 11 activations to 10, which is ultimately for the better, but they still have 13. No, how many of them? They have 9 now?
They have 14 bodies total, yeah.
Instead of 15.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, still...
They got the vet guard thing.
Awesome.
Activation numbers, that is.
Yeah, what do you guys think about Colts? Chris, you're a big player of the Colts. Do you think that they're out of S tier now?
I had my time in the sun with Colts, but I didn't play them for that long. In my mind, I think they are... Colts are definitely a victim of being an asymmetrical, sometimes they're still S tier, on ITD on capture. I think they're still pretty unstoppable. But these changes also make it so that on certain situations on open where they're guaranteed they're going to take some casualties, I think they can start really struggling. I think the overall equilibrium they're reaching is probably putting them in a decent place. But I don't like the direction the nerfs went with this team. I think they sort of started going down a path that made it so that they're going to be too strong in some situations and too weak in other situations.
Yeah, I think ultimately their changes on Into the Dark are just absolutely massive. I think the only way to fix this team is to fix capture. Otherwise, you just have to nerf them into Oblivion so they're no longer relevant. Otherwise, they'll just be too good on that particular mission, whether it's Into the Dark or Open. I think that this team is also seeing a growing list of nerfs, and I can tell you that I don't think it's over, especially with where this team is lacking and where this is going to be controversial. I think the team is currently okay where it's at, and I know everyone's going to be like, "Oh, Dakotah, you just said they need more nerfs." I think to be a balanced team, they need more nerfs. I think that the team currently is still overpowered, especially in the hands of a great pilot. Alexa, Chris, a few other people out there. I know Kellen was getting his time in the sun with them, but there's still a lot of people out there that can pilot this team really, really well. A lot of people in Spain, so on and so forth. My ultimate problem, the reason why I think the team is overall in an okay spot, is when I look at the stats, this team is one of the lowest taken teams. It is not a popular team. And that might be because they're boring. That might be because they are, people don't like to play it or play against them. I think there's a lot of things with this team that is ultimately the issue with the team. But yeah, the fact that they're not, I value popularity with teams quite a lot, because even if a team is super overpowered, but it's very rarely taken, we're not going to see it very often. So since the team is not taken too often, I think the team is in a relatively balanced state. Now, if everyone and their mom starts playing them like they did with Commandos this past data slate, it took 7 months for them to become the most popular team on planet Earth, but they are now currently the most popular kill team on planet Earth. It's not like Mars exists,
Or does it?
I mean, it might.
That's what
We
they
don't
do
know.
the testing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
No one on
Elon-
Earth could have made Chaos Cults.
Release Colts are really something.
yeah, absolutely. So if you guys had to take a stab at what teams are going to be overpowered in this upcoming meta, what do you guys, what is your guys' S tier currently?
Not counting new
Galaxy
teams,
and
right?
Pathfinders for me.
Not counting new teams because we don't know all the rules.
Oh.
What did you say, Chris?
Gellerpox and Pathfinders.
Is that because of, you think Beta Decima is going to become more of a thing?
I think Vet Guard were sort of a gatekeeper for Pathfinders that really stopped them from really snowballing. And Vet Guard now lost, two really key tools for them to really throttle Pathfinder's performance. I think that that matchup is a pretty easy win for Pathfinders now. And if I were really trying to get sweaty with it, I would definitely be looking at both of those teams.
Yeah.
Felgor and Gellerpox for me.
I'm definitely going to say for me, it would be Gellerpox number 1 and Wormblade number 2.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of, I probably have more information than the two of you, so I think it's unfair for me to ask you this. But looking at the stats, neither one of those teams were touched. And I think Wormblade was overbuffed quite heavily. And we are going to see them come to power here very soon, in my opinion. They score very well on a lot of things. Their weaknesses are much like Novitiate's weaknesses, which Novitiates also did not get touched, and they're fucking bananas. But it is the melee hordes. So you have Gellerpox, you have Felgor, you now have Warp Coven when you take one sorcerer and you take 10 Zangor beasts. Those people will just fucking mollywop some of these teams. Like
such a good word.
yeah, thanks. Mollywop or Zinch Wop, a bunch of these guys. So there's like obvious counters into Wormblade and Novitiates, but I think that they still have a lot of cheese that Games Workshop has not nerfed, and I would love to see. They are one of the other few teams that are just extremely not fun to play against. And
yeah, so for me, when I think of S tier, I think of teams that effectively don't have bad matchups, and can and feel confident walking into any event, any scenario, and they're going to do well. And I think that Gellerpox and Pathfinder are now in that bucket. I think Wormblade is an incredibly strong team that a lot of people haven't fully gotten a grasp on yet. But unfortunately, they have a few real limiting spots of their team they're gonna struggle into certain matchups, which stops me from them at S tier, but they're certainly A tier.
I think that's fair. The weird thing about Wormblade is they They are in 4th place for most tournament wins this past data slate when they already had a bunch of counters in the in the meta. And I think with some of those teams just getting a slight tap, we may see that number go up. Or we will see that number go up, especially when they become more and more popular. I mean, them actually was it winning or was it placings? They placed 4th most out of all teams. No, yeah, it was winning. So no, top placings. I apologize. They were 2nd most in winnings, tournament wins. So take that information as you would like. But the fact that they won the 2nd most amount of tournaments and then they placed 4th most, that only means that Commandos won more tournaments than Wormblade.
Well, damn.
That is scary. And hopefully everyone who's listening to this will tune into the stat show. If you like stats, if you don't. But it's going to be very interesting, and things like that are all over the place. So it's going to be a very fun talk. Now, we'll do a last little discussion on some of the rules that we saw from the new teams coming out. We'll probably save that for, when the team actually all the rules come out for it on Saturday. But is there anything that was like super crazy that you guys saw and like want to talk about right now?
There's an image that I'm going to send you guys right now.
Okay.
That kind of, for me, when I think about in Midnight Clad, I think about this image. So let me go.
Is it like Batman with a shirt off or what?
No, I have it here. I sent it to Alex a bunch of times, and I'm going to send it here now. And there it is. It's been sent. If you know, you know. And I debated whether I should share that in the Squad Games Discord. I was talking with Alex about it. I ultimately decided not to share it until I put like text over it. So there's actually the context for it.
I think if you put the context there, it is great. I think it's absolutely great.
I think they're going to have some really cool abilities. And I'm not saying that every game company does this, but maybe they're going to be the best elites right now.
Well, I will say that since no elite teams got buffs this data slate, I think I'm leaning to the nefariousism. If that's even a real word. I like to make up words. That Games Workshop decided not to buff any elite teams because this team is coming out. And I don't know if that's the case or not, but I feel like it's a problem.
All I'm saying is Vox Scream.
Vox Screen?
Vox Scream.
It's pretty nuts, right?
Yeah. What is Vox? I only got to watch. I literally stopped watching it because I had to take my son out to the park, but I stopped watching it and I screamed out, "What the fuck?" in the middle of my walk with my dog. And I stopped the video and I called Giacomo. And that's the last part of the battle that I watched because I wanted to be surprised by this Saturday. And that's when the Games Workshop dude, James Workshop #1, was like, "Yo, I'm going to open a portal here and this guy's going to walk through the portal and be in your deployment zone." Mm-hmm. And I literally was like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
And I was like, I had to call G. I was like, "Oh, what the fuck is this?"
So mandrakes be mandraking, obviously that's
lost
happening,
my fucking mind.
All right, look, we all know that things like Omni Scramble or denunciation, whatever that Inquisition have, you as a strategic ploy, you pick an enemy operative, they can't activate. Ooh, that's so scary, that's terrible. But so often the problem with those abilities is you don't know which operative your opponent's going to pick, right? Mm-hmm. And your opponent can sort of plan around it because then they have the ticking clock going. They can figure out another activation in the meantime. The cool thing about Vox Scream is when your opponent would activate a model, you just say, "No, you don't. No, you don't activate that model. You activate somebody else. Go fuck yourself." And that is going to make people so incredibly mad. People get mad at Absolute Authority right now. This is twice as bad. Absolutely, tables will be flipped.
Yeah,
Voxes will be screamed.
So question. So does that mean that Vet Guard could get up to 13 activations? Like if you're like, I'm going to GA2, you move one model and then he says you can't move the second model. And then like,
No, unfortunately not. In certain situations like that, if there aren't any other enemy operatives that are eligible to be activated, the ploy can't be used. So you can't, for example, if your opponent only has two GA2 models, that are GA2 to each other, and they activate one of them, you can't Vox Scream the second one, right? Like that activation sequence is already going. And similarly, breachers can use breach and clear to effectively bypass this rule when they need to. It's still really cool, though.
It is super cool. I'm very excited about these teams. It's literally going to flip. I feel like it's going to flip everything on its head. I haven't wanted to play Blades of Cain. I know, Chris, you're a big fan of them, but they want to make my brain explode with how complicated they are. And I hope that Mandrakes are less complicated, but
they're definitely
we've been having a blade of a time up here. Sam and I actually went to we both competed in the same tournament together. It was a tiny little small tournament, but I took first and he took second. We both took blades and we were undefeated, like collectively.
Nice. So collectively, you're telling me that games that Glass Half Dead, he came out and said that Blades of Cain are S tier, and I think he was referring to tactical rocks rather than actual things. I know that he disappeared from YouTube, but he's back now. So do you, maybe, who knows? Do you think that Blades is S tier?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
No. Boy, did the Just a Scratch nerf change things for them, though.
Yeah. Makes them better into them. I still think they're going to struggle into
But now there is a reality where I can have a Banshee or a Scorpion charge a boy and potentially win, right? Obviously, if I get charged, I lose. But now it's possible if I charge, I win, which is really cool.
I love that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're going to call it here. We have another thing to record. So is there anything you guys want to shout out?
Yeah, you want to go first, Chris?
Bay Area Championships. It's going to be really, really cool. Go to lestersworkshop.com and sign up. You'll see me there, and I'm looking forward to it.
I'll do my spiel real quick. You can find me. You can find me on Instagram at wargaming_studios. That's wargaming_studios. I'm painting stuff on there, so you can see what I'm doing. You can find me on Discord. Join the conversation on the Squad Games Discord. Link in the show notes, or you could just look us up, Squad-Games on Discord, and join us there. That's always a fun time. If you want to buy some models or you're looking to go to some other events that are run by Frontline Gaming, feel free to use our affiliate link. That gives us a little bit of a kickback and adds no additional charge to whatever you'd like to buy, whether you're pre-ordering the Nightmare set, maybe pre-ordering something else from a different game, or waiting for, what's the other one called? The one with the Jaegers and the Brood Brothers. Termination, I believe.
Terminator.
Yeah, Terminator. There you go. Terminators. You can get all that through their link, and it helps us. Well, I guess it's our link, technically, and it helps us. And, of course, you can always join our Patreon if you want to help us in a more personal level, and we really do appreciate it. Just listening, though, is more than enough. But if you want to go a little bit higher than that, you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. And don't forget to check out the YouTube channel, which Dakotah will have more information about right now.
So anyone who cannot contribute to our Patreon, it costs you nothing to leave a review for this podcast. Just give us a 5 stars. If you hate us, give us a 0 star. Any kind of interaction with that kind of metric helps us overall be seen. So that will be a big help. Our YouTube is Squad Games Entertainment. And the title of this next video coming out is going to be Meta Watch, Kill Team Meta Watch. With Squad Games. So feel free to type that in. If you can't find it, we're going to have it in the YouTube and the Discord. It'll probably be up tonight after we record. It's going to be a live recording, so I'm going to do very little editing. But yeah, it should be great. So looking forward to everyone checking that out and then checking out Hobby Highlander as we are starting to churn out more and more content. So it should be great.
All right, guys. Until next time.
Until the next one. Thank you.
Until next time.
Until the next Nightmare Box or whatever it's called.
Until Terminator.
The Squad Games podcast is a production of Squad Games Entertainment. For more information on Squad Games, please visit our website at lustersworkshop.com/squad-games.